Hi and welcome. My name is Clay. Welcome to the channel if we're meeting for the first time. Today we're going to talk about the Scherzo by Mr. Webster in the Suzuki Book 3. And we're going to go over several aspects of this piece, and I'm going to have an extra resource for you here at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that. If you're coming back to this video again, there is a table of contents down in the notes below, so jump to whatever section you need here to help learn this piece. And this is just going to be an overview, some of the big stuff that you need to remember, things you can do while you're learning this piece. First off is the fact that it's fast. It's marked presto, right? Scherzo. Scherzo means little joke. One of the primary goals of this is to loosen up this wrist to gain this independence, all right? Because, you know, we're playing all these doubles. And this is not the first time. If you've worked your way through the Suzuki books from book 1, you'll remember that you did something similar, all right, with perpetual motion, yes? So it's the same concept here in Scherzo with the doubles and the loosening up, but this is something I really have to tackle early on. And I want to do this on the scale. So, you know, a good goal for this, of course, always, as always, goal for the technique here is to get this thing, get your wrist loosened up, to get it really independent, because it affects so many things, so many other aspects of your playing. But a good goal for this is like 145 to 155. At that point, pretty much everybody really has to loosen up the wrist, okay? Before you get there with the piece, you really need to slow this down here and practice it on a scale with 2 beats worth of 16th notes. So what I'm talking about is all the way through the G major scale 2 octave. And we use G major because that's the range of the piece, yes? Okay, I'm going from low G down here up to high G, which is the highest note in this piece, this G up here in 4th position, okay? The piece is in D major, while the Meno Mosso is in G major, but because of the range, G major is a better scale. So I want to do that. All right, and then I'm going to keep getting faster and faster, all right? And doing all these repetitions will help you. Remember, don't move the metronome up until you can play really, really clean and in tune at each of these tempos, until I get to the 155 and I can play the whole scale. Okay, all the way through and back down, even down to the open G. With the arpeggio as well. All the way up to that high G up there. And so what I'm doing is I'm teaching this hand to loosen up. Then I'm gonna wanna go back. Once I've gotten that up to speed, and it'll be a little different for everybody, but maybe I wanna slow it down a little bit. And I wanna start cutting that in half. So, like this, where I'm not playing 2 beats worth of 16th notes, I'm just playing 1 beat's worth, okay? 1 end to 2 end, like this. And then of course, cutting it in half one more time, because that's ultimately what's gonna get me to the piece. Because as I'm moving through Scherzo, when you look on the page here, you can see that it's doubles. I spend 2 16th notes on each of these pitches here. All right, so I first want to be able to do that on the scale. All right, it gets harder as I cut these repetitions in half. And so it's really, really important, and I'm saying this over and over, that you do it on the scale first. That doesn't mean you can't practice the piece, okay? So some other things that you can do to help loosen up this wrist that are really important. One is to focus on the Meno Mosso. All of the things that you do to play legato and connect all the notes with your wrist and fingers being loose. So, in order to connect those notes beautifully and play with a beautiful tone, I have to have my fingers, you know, fingertips on the bow, wrist loosed, the same way I do when I'm playing, okay? All of this stuff, they all overlap, which is why this piece is so important in the first place. While you're getting the scale up to speed, focus in on a great, great tone throughout the piece, but especially in the Meno Mosso section, okay? And don't forget that you can practice the Scherzo itself just at a slower tempo. And I would encourage you to do that. But remember, scale first. Scale first. Get that scale to speed. just getting this hand to loosen up and play fast. The other thing that you can do to help move this along is to isolate this motion. See, I'm keeping my arm and elbow actually pretty stationary. And I'm really exaggerating the wrist and finger motion. To really loosen this up, okay? Because this action is what allows me to play the piece fast, okay? Bowing and tone. Kind of mentioned the tone there. There's no bowings in this that I would change. It's all great. Well, it's mostly just separated 16th notes, so no problem there. Make sure in the Meno Mosso, all of these arpeggios, they're all up bow, except for at the end of this section where you have 2 strings of 8th notes in a row. Obviously, those are not going to be 2 up bows in a row. All right, but it does work out. Where the one going down is down bow and the one going up is still up bow, yes? And that makes it easy to keep up with, okay? And speaking of the bowing and the tone, dynamics. This thing actually starts piano, right? It's one of the things that makes it kind of fun. And then there's also some forzandos in here. Again, I know we keep coming back to this hand loosening up, but this is the challenge of this piece. This is the big learning concept of this piece. Doing the forzandos, really exaggerating them, is another thing that's going to help get the action of your hand correct on the bow. So there in the 3rd line. Okay, really make sure you exaggerate those things. Intonation. Do the scales. Make sure you use a drone pitch, meaning do your scale exercises with the drone. G and D. You know, we use G scale because the range of this piece goes up to a G. I know it's in D major for most of the time, but there's enough G major stuff to it. And again, the range. Don't take 4th position for granted. Make sure you're really getting in tune up there, okay? Use a drum pitch, practice your scales. Don't forget to practice the arpeggios. This will also help your intonation when we start to shift around. And please, please, please play along to the piano accompaniment that comes with the book. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that students make, is not taking the time to get that out or download it or however you get your hands on it and play along to it. You have to attack the intonation from all these different angles to really, really help your ears and get them to recognize the pitches and recognize when you're not playing in tune. The harmony, playing along to the piano, is a big piece of that, of being successful with intonation, so don't skip that step. Now, I mentioned an extra resource here on YouTube that I would leave for you, and that is going to be a playlist. So this was an overview. I didn't go into detail about some of these things because some of these aspects that are needed to be successful with this piece I've covered in other videos. So I'm going to make a supplemental playlist of things that are related to playing this piece. Some of these exercises with the right hand, all the independent stuff, other videos where I've used Scherzo as an example. And you can find that playlist right here.